Hey there, this is part 6 in a series on fountain pen inks, and today I would like to talk about black ink. Now, black ink I think is widely available. Pretty much every brand makes one, and some brands even make multiple black inks, either in cartridge form or in bottled ink, I think black is, generally speaking, a fairly popular color. A lot of people use it, although there's also a lot of people who think it's a bit boring. Now, I can understand that. I'm among those who actually like black inks. I think it can give you writing a very stately, very formal look. I definitely don't use black inks on a daily basis, but there are some writing types that really lend themselves to black ink. For instance, if you use a flex nib pen, I think a very true black color would look very good. And if you do calligraphy, as I do, then black ink is, indispensably really needed. One thing you may think is that black is just black. So you buy black ink, you use it, and it will turn out black on the paper. Well, that is not entirely true. A lot of blacks that you can buy may look black in the bottle or in the cartridge, but once you write with them, especially in nibs that are on the broad side, you will find that the black is actually a bit gray when you put it on the paper when it dries. Fortunately, there is also a couple of inks that are really black. And I'm going to show you today some inks that are on the gray side and one ink that is really, truly, deeply, utterly black. Just to be sure. In fact, I only have 3 different black inks in bottles. I also have a few black cartridges from Waterman, but I'm not going to show you how those write. I'll just confine myself to the 3 bottle blacks I have, and because that's not an awful lot of inks, I will also add gray inks. I have 2 gray inks. I'm not a huge fan of either of those, but since black and gray are related anyway, I thought it would make sense to incorporate them in this review. So I will start with the lightest gray I have and end with the darkest black I have. And I think that's pretty much it. So I'll do some writing samples, and that's all I have today. So I hope this is useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye. Okay, so here we go with the blacks and grays. I will start with the lightest gray I have, which is Gerbin's Gris Nuage, and although that is an interesting color, I never use it in a fountain pen. And the very reason for that is that it's difficult to read. At least I think so. It looks nice. As you can see here, but to me this offers too little contrast to be used on a daily basis. It's an interesting color, and I think it looks very nice, but for me it would be a little too difficult to read. I would not like to give anyone a note written in this ink, because I don't want people to do trouble to read what I wrote. So I'll do a writing sample. This is the amount of saturation you could expect in a fountain pen. These glass pens tend to heighten saturation a little bit because a lot of ink is loaded on the tip. So if you put it in a fountain pen, you could expect your writing to look something like that. Okay, so that's Gris Nuage. Interesting color. I'll just clean the pen here. It's an interesting color, and I do really like it, but I also think it is a little bit too hard to read to use on a daily basis. So I clean my pen, and we move on to the next color. And the next ink is Cacao du Brésil, which is another Gerbin ink. cacao du Brésil. The two are related, but the cacao du Brésil is a bit darker. When I got this, I thought it would be brown, because if I think of cocoa, I think of brown chocolate. But apparently, I'm not sure. Maybe the bottle, well, there is a cocoa nut on it, and that, not a cocoa nut, I mean a cocoa nut. It looks like it's brown and not grey, so I'm not absolutely sure what the point of the grey color is, but there's undoubtedly a reason. If anyone knows, just put in a comment. This is still grey, but it's darker grey than the Gris Nuage, and I could actually put this in a fountain pen. And if you do, then I'm running out of ink here. This is the amount of saturation you could expect in a fountain pen. Okay, I clean the pen. We move to the first black. Now, I don't have that much left of this black, so I have to be careful how I dip my pen. There we go. This is Visconti black, and I think that's a nice black. I got that with my Opera Elements, with a fountain pen. I mean, I think this is an interesting black. It is a little bit grayish, which you may be able to see. In any case, I do like it. It is undoubtedly black, although you can see at specific points in the writing that it tends to be a little grayish. But I'll come back to that in a second. I'll just do a writing sample. Now that the nib gets a little drier, you start to see it is more grey than black. In a fountain pen, your ink will look like this if you have a medium or a broad nib. I mean a broader medium or a fully broad nib, but in a finer fountain pen it may well look a bit more greyish. Jumps over the... Now I'm running out of ink here. I think it is safe to say that the amount of saturation you would get in a fountain pen would be something like this. Okay, that was Visconti. Then we move to what I thought was the blackest ink I could get, which is Gerbin's Perle Noire. There we go. Now, this black pearl, that's really black. That's what you would think, right? So let me do a writing sample. But as you can see, as the nib gets a little drier and I use up my ink, this too gets a little grayer. Now, what I want to show you is a very peculiar type of dip pen. This is by the German brand Brause, and it is called Plakat, which is like a poster. What do you call it? Placard? There's a word for that. In any case, this is an extremely broad nib. This is 1 centimeter wide, which is extremely wide. Clearly, you will not ever get this in a fountain pen. This is made for calligraphy purposes. But I would just like to show you what I'm talking about when I say black ink can actually be a little grey. Now, it's always a bit of a hassle to get these placard nibs to write, but I'll do my best. Okay, that was surprisingly smooth. Okay, how am I going to do this? Let me see. I'm not doing my best calligraphy here. I just want to show you something. Don't pay attention to the feathering, it's not that great paper. Okay, so here we have some very rapidly done and therefore definitely not ideal, but nevertheless Gothic calligraphy with an extremely wide nib. Okay, so there is feathering here, but of course this is pretty flimsy paper. Let's just wait for a few seconds and see what happens. You can in fact already see at this point that the ink is no longer black. This has turned grey, and as it dries it gets even greyer. Some of the really wet spots are still black, but once they are dry, I'm going to ruin this now by using a blosser. Yeah, okay, so this is really saturated and therefore black, but you can see this here. So you see this greyish stuff. It's because the way the ink dries up and the way the ink interacts with the paper. So what you thought was an extremely black ink in a very broad nib can actually turn grey. So when I found out about that, and let's remember that most calligraphy nibs are not this wide, but they are wide. When I found out about this grey stuff, I emailed Brian Goulet from the Goulet Pen Company and said, Brian, can you recommend a pen, an ink that I can use that is really black? And when I say black, I mean black as the inside of a coffin on a moonless night. And then Brian said, sure, there's Noodler's Anti-Feather, which you can get in these large 4.5 ounce bottles. Let me move the camera back a little bit. So that is this type of ink, and this is perfect. I'm going to show you the difference. I start by cleaning my pen. Then I'll first do some writing with the glass pen again. This ink has two advantages. For starters, it is black. And when I say black, in this case, I really, really mean black. You see that? That doesn't turn grey. Now, what I'll do is I'll take another placard. Oh, well, let me just do a writing sample, just to give you an idea of how nice an ink this is. So I said the first advantage is that it's really black. The second advantage is it doesn't feather. The advantage? Jumps over the black turned grey ink. Let's be creative here. Okay, so this is what you could expect in a fountain pen. I hardly ever put this ink in a fountain pen, but I do use it a lot for calligraphy purposes. So, as I just promised, here's another placard. I'll load it up with anti-feather, and I'll try to show you the difference. Let's get it to write again. It writes straight away, and it spills. Oh yeah, ruining my desk. Let me see. I'm going to take a new sheet of paper because I'm running out of paper here. One moment. Desk clean again, sort of. Right. Forget about this line here, that's just because of that's the opening of the nib. You have to put in some more ink. I'm sorry, the tripod was in the way of my wrist. Okay, here we go. You see that? You see any feathering? There is no feathering. This ink doesn't feather. Even on this relatively cheap paper, yeah, sure, here at the edges there is a little bit of stuff going on. But if we compare that to this, you see the difference? This is feathering like hell. And this is gray, not black. This is not feathering, and this black is black. I'm not sure whether my camera here really picks up the difference, but there really is a difference. And whereas the perle noire is actually a little gray, I would call that black. And because of the lighting it may actually seem a little grayish, but I promise you this is as black as can be. Alright, so there we have the anti-feather. Now there's one more black ink I'd like to demonstrate, and I'm putting that on the glass pen right now. I'm not dipping the pen, I'm using an eyedropper to saturate the glass pen. There we go. This, I have to warn you, is a bit of a specialty ink. This is Noodler's Black Erase. Whoops, sorry about that. Noodler's Black Erase. And Noodler's Black Erase is not meant to be used in a fountain pen. If you've seen my video on blue inks, you may remember the blue erase, which was made to write on whiteboards. Well, this is the same stuff, except this is black. So you shouldn't put this in a fountain pen. This is really meant to be used on a whiteboard. And the good thing about that is that if you put it, you can erase it. So, you know, put it on a whiteboard, and it is no problem to wipe it off again, which is very useful if you use, you know, whiteboards. Doing a writing sample with this is fairly silly because you're not going to put that in a fountain pen anyway, but just to be complete. Actually, I'm running out of ink here, but foxing, the quick brown foxing, sorry, it's my mind is going. Never mind, the quick brown foxing was boxing. It's the only thing I can think of right now. So, again, this is not to be put in a fountain pen, but using whiteboards only. So, that was it. The last thing I'll do is I'll write down these ink names in that specific ink, so you can compare them one after the other, and that's pretty much it. So I think after this I should cover yellow and orange, and then I have covered all the ink colors that I have. And there's a lot of them out there, and clearly I could not cover every single ink, but I've tried to give you an idea of you know, shading, things to look out for, you know, darker, lighter shades, etc. So when it comes to black, if you are in the market for a really black, here you have it. Noodlers makes a number of blacks. There's I think Borealis black, and there's also Heart of Darkness. I have no experience with those. I think Heart of Darkness is very black too, but I don't have any personal experience with writing with that ink, so I can't tell you anything about it. This one I'm seriously, positively happy with. So if you're looking for an ink that won't feather, this is it. If you're looking for a really black, this is it, and there's no question about it. So I hope this was useful, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.